What up, world? And welcome back to another episode of the Seeds of Success podcast. It's your host, Colin Walters, and I'm very excited to bring a special guest on the show today, a longtime best friend of mine, Troy Castle. Troy and I grew up in Gig Harbor, Washington together. We grew up playing sports together. He is still a phenomenal athlete. Troy just competed in Ironman Kona, the World Championships of Ironman last month in Hawaii. 2 weeks before that, he got third in Ironman Chattanooga. He has competed in countless endurance events, marathons. He's won a good amount of them, which he would never tell you, and we don't talk about at all on this podcast. So definitely want you to know that he would never say it, but I get to brag for him in this moment. And above all of his endurance and Ironman training and competition in the athletic world, Troy is first and foremost a man of faith. He is a devout husband to his wife and his bride, Caroline. And Troy is an exceptional father to their newborn son, baby Cooper. And so it's with my great pleasure and an honor to have Troy Castle on the show today to share with you all how Troy has found success in his life and how he balances the things that he's passionate about with the things that are most important to him, that being his faith, his family, his friends, community, and connections. And so I'm excited to bring this episode to you all. Hope you enjoy. And here's the conversation that I had with Troy Castle. All right, here we go. Troy Castle, welcome to the Seeds of Success podcast, man. It is an absolute honor to have you on here.
Awesome, man. It's good to be with you. Thanks for making time to chat with me.
No doubt, man. And I mean, just super quick, like Troy and I have known each other for a very long time. We grew up together. We played baseball together, basketball. There was a very brief stint in my career playing football, but Troy obviously did a lot more in his life and career with football. But I mean, we go back to Gig Harbor days here, and long time coming. And Troy, at the end of the day, is just a phenomenal human being. And so excited to have you on the show. I know a lot of people are excited to just hear this conversation, and which is exactly what it is. We were just chatting before we jumped on about how it's basically just going to be our hour-long catch-up on life with a tailored focus on Troy's accomplishments, and then a conversation from there between us. So Troy, thank you, man.
Appreciate it. No, absolutely, man. As you said, we've been close for a long time, and you're somebody that I've always really looked up to, and our friendship obviously means a lot to us. And so every time we catch up is special to me. So I'm looking forward to it. Given the people inside scoop of what we catch up on about once a month or so.
Yep. This is that monthly check-in here. So for those that actually don't know you, I mean, there's a lot of people that do know you that, may not actually know what's been going on in Troy's life. Like, maybe go ahead, introduce yourself a little bit, who you are, where you're from, what you're about, Troy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Troy Castle. So I was born in California Bay Area. Lived there until I was about 4, and then our family packed up and moved to Idaho. Mm-hmm. Lived there for about 5 years. While we were there, we kind of started picking up a lot of the winter sports, the skiing and stuff like that. And I lived there from kindergarten until 3rd grade. After 3rd grade, our family packed up and moved and settled in Gig Harbor, Washington, which is where we kind of put roots down from 4th grade all the way through high school. That's obviously where you and I became great friends and grew up together, and played Hammers baseball together, played total package basketball together. Some of the best memories, growing up. After I graduated, I moved down to Texas and went to school at Southern Methodist University here in Dallas. I walked on the football team here, played here for 5 years, studied undergrad biology, and then stuck around for a 5th year and got my master's in finance. During SMU, I met my college sweetheart, Miss Caroline Young. We dated for several years throughout college, and then we got married 2 years out of school We've been together we've been married for coming up on 4 years now, and in July it'll be 4 years. She's amazing in every way. She is my best friend, and just a bride that's far beyond anything that I deserve. So I'm extremely grateful for her and just the impact she's had on my life. In June, we had our first baby, a little baby son. His name is Cooper Troy. He's 4.5 months now, and he's just a joy. We are enjoying every minute of him, and we just love being parents and watching him grow, and are just so excited for what's to come. So yeah, that's kind of, I guess, where I'm at now. I work in finance. I work in it's a private equity backed optometry practice roll up. So I'm on the corporate development team doing a lot of the M&A activity. I've been with that company for coming up on 2 years now. We live in North Dallas, and our family is kind of all spread out around here in Texas. So that keeps us busy running around to see everyone. But yeah, that's kind of us in a nutshell.
Troy, I'm just smiling, man, on the inside, just recapping your life, like thinking back to total package workouts, laughing in layup line.
Yeah.
Working hard, but having a lot of fun doing it, man. Hammers baseball, Little League baseball, Dodgers, White Sox, like it goes back. And fellowship of Christian athletes was something that we did that I think, I think about things that we've done that were also super meaningful. That's something that comes to my mind at your house, hosted by your dad. And so that was, that's super important to me. And so, for those of you listening and watching, Troy is, he's got a lot going on in his life, and Caroline is just an amazing woman, as he mentioned. And actually Shelby and I, my fiance, we just found our ticket for the big wheel that we went on in Seattle.
Yeah.
When we all went to dinner, right. And then we went on the big wheel in Seattle. We just found that. And so Troy's got
dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
We were talking about that sushi roll the other day. That was such a fun night. Oh my gosh. And now you guys are just absolutely thriving. It's so fun to see. And obviously we just love and adore Shelby, and you're kind of in the same shoes I'm in, where you're getting ready to marry somebody that's, way out of our respective leagues. So 100%. It's a good feeling. You know what I mean? It's a great feeling. You just wake up every day. You're like, this is awesome. I have a wife far beyond anything I deserve. And so the day can't be bad when you have that.
It can't be bad when you have that, and have the perspective about it that way too, because I think that's
right.
It's just right in line with never taking them for granted. And there's no way that a guy like me, who just talks way too much and probably thinks about himself too much, and tries to do his good part, but that should be with Shelby. She's amazing, and she's working so hard in school right now, and so she inspires me more than I ever tell her, I think, which is something, a good reminder for me as well. We got some winners, and little baby Coop, who's not so little anymore, from just even pictures that I've seen and videos. We still got him up on our fridge from the early days, from the first card that you sent. Hey, quick shout out to Troy real quick, actually, and Caroline, because they are still the example of what it means to write handwritten cards and letters and mail physical envelopes, and we love it. And we just picked up a card yesterday to handwrite and ship off to somebody for something special. And so it's just is a great way to stay connected in a even more meaningful way, to take the time to write things. So for all those listening, that's not dead by any means. That is alive and living.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I appreciate you saying that. That's we just think that it's an important thing to do. Like, if you ever really want to show your appreciation for somebody, take the time to write them a handwritten note, and people will always appreciate that. And it goes a long way. So it's a simple thing, but it goes a long way. So I appreciate you saying that. Yeah.
100% for a little extra effort, but and then it's something that we post up on our fridge. And then there's Caroline and Troy and Coop that we're seeing on our fridge every day, and just handwritten words. I remember back in college, we had a professor who taught us what he used to do. He was in outside sales. This was a sport management class, and he would carry a little bucket of thank you cards with him that he would always have ready to hand write and then deliver it to whoever he had just met with, whoever he spoke with. And so he always had, and I still have packs that are in my drawers sitting right next to me. And I used to be a lot better at it. And truth be told, like, I haven't written one in a little bit of time here. And so I think this is a good reminder to do exactly that. And so thank you for being the example there.
Sure.
Yeah. So, well, Troy, again, love having you on. I know, one thing that I obviously this is going to be learning for myself too. Like, I know what you've accomplished in your career when it comes to triathlon, Ironman, endurance sports. Quick side note, if anybody was more interested in Troy's like backstory of the walk-on at SMU, great podcast and episode on the Walk-On Mentality podcast. Shout out Jackson Mitchell, where you can go and listen to that interview. And so we won't dive into that here, but Walk-On Mentality podcast, go check it out if you do want to hear some more of that backstory. Awesome podcast. Jackson's doing great things, and it's a great interview with Troy. And so, but Ironman, endurance sports, you just did Kona. This has been, I don't know how many years, man, 8 years of training, something incredible. And I know you've been doing this thing a long time. You told me 3 years ago that year was your last one. Here we are 3 years later with you already qualified for Kona in 2023. So I don't believe it, but maybe if you want to just share a little bit about however you want to take it, like whether you want to talk about Kona or how you first got into triathlon, like whichever route you want to go, Troy, is totally up to you. And we can just,
for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think, so I kind of mentioned earlier when I was at SMU, I was on the football team. And so, my college experience was really centered around football. And so like, your schedule was completely structured the entire 5 years. I mean, there was never a time where I was home during the summer for more than 2 or 3 weeks at a time, because we were there in summer school doing workouts, et cetera, et cetera. So it just kind of got ingrained into you to like have something to train for. And so when I graduated and kind of moved into, working professionally, I was looking for something else to train for. And so I initially did my first marathon kind of the first year that I was out of school, like December of, I guess it was 6 months post graduation. And then from there, I just kind of got bit by the bug of like, okay, what do I want to train for? And just like always kind of had this interest in endurance sports, if you will. And so, man, I guess it was a year after, so this would have been 2017. I had always been curious and interested by triathlon. And I was like, you know what? I want to do a triathlon. I had never swam before competitively, other than, us growing up on the water and swimming in the sound or whatever. But like swimming as a sport, as exercise, I had never done it like that. I didn't own a bike. And I was like, I want to do a triathlon. And so even before buying a bike, I went and signed up for a race. So for me, that was my way of saying, okay, I'm going all in on this. I've signed up for a race. I paid my registration fee. Now I have to do it. And so I think it was 4 months later, I did my first 70.3 in Austin. And then a month after that, I did my first full in Cozumel, which was November 2017. And from there, I guess I've just always been hooked. I've been kind of hooked on just how the constant pursuit of improvement in the sport. There's always something to work on. It's swimming in particular has always been a challenge for me. It's been a very humbling sport. And so I've enjoyed just working on something that you put in a lot of time and you still feel like there's so much room for improvement. So anyway, long story short, I after I did my first full, I was just like, this is a hobby that I want to continue to pursue. And, consistently maybe done at least one full per year. Some years I've done two, and just kind of at the back of as you do this more and more, the end goal was, I would love to qualify for Kona. So for the folks that aren't as familiar with the sport, so Kona is it's the Ironman World Championships, and you have to qualify to be there. And so it's this like worldwide event from people all across the globe, that basically, in order to qualify, you either have to get first or second in your age group at an Ironman distance. And so it's usually really, really competitive to try to qualify. And so I guess it was in 2019, I raced Ironman Texas, and I finished 10th in my age group, I think, at the time. And that was the first time I was like, you know what, if you really invest the time and follow a structured training plan, and really pursue this could be a reasonable possible goal, understanding at the same time how much work lies ahead in order to do that. And then that was 2019. I was all set. Caroline and I got married in July of 2019, and we just kind of dove headfirst into trying to qualify. And then obviously insert COVID, and all the races got canceled. And so COVID was it was really one of the biggest blessings to our marriage, looking back on it, because Caroline works in consulting, and she was traveling Monday through Thursday every single week. COVID happens, they enter a travel halt. And so we're spending every single day together. You can't really go anywhere because stuff is closed down. And the two of us just set up our bike trainers in our 1-bedroom apartment, and we just trained like crazy because the gyms were closed, and we had Trainer Road on our phone, and we just trained like crazy. It was so much fun. And looking back on it now, it was just like that was like one of the sweetest times in our marriage, just getting to spend every day together. And in addition to like training like 20 plus hours a week. And so that just, all that to say, like that was really a year that I think I made a lot of strides in the physical training department. And in 2021, we had Caroline did an Ironman that I did with her. I was so proud of her. She did amazing. She absolutely crushed it. And then that just continued to spring forward. And so yeah, anyway, qualified for Kona in a Waco 2021. And then, yeah, just raced it about a month ago now, which is crazy. It's already been a month. And it was, it was the fulfillment of a long dream that I had been pursuing for a while. And all my family was there to see it. And some friends were there too. And obviously a lot of friends following along. So it was a special time for sure.
How'd the race go?
Yeah,
I know you mentioned it was the hardest race that you've ever experienced, and it was arguably, if not the hardest thing that you've ever done from at least physical standpoint.
Yeah. So I was talking with you mentioned Jackson Mitchell. Jackson is my best friend, and obviously you guys are good buddies now too. And he, like you said, he does fantastic stuff on the Walk On Mentality podcast. He's another person I just greatly look up to. But I was talking to him, kind of giving him the recap afterwards. And so I had raced Ironman Chattanooga 2 weeks before Kona. And that was probably, if you look at,
that is crazy.
I don't know.
2 weeks before you're racing Ironman Chattanooga. Sorry, that's crazy.
Yeah. So that was, so I kind of viewed Kona as like a celebration almost, in the way of like all the work that it took to get there. There's no pressure in a race like that because you've already qualified. You can just go enjoy the entire experience. But I had been wanting to race Chattanooga for a long time. That had been kind of at the top of my list. It's beautiful there. We were supposed to do it in 2021, and we got COVID really bad. And they were gracious enough to let me defer it to 2022. And so I deferred it to 2022. And at that time, I hadn't qualified for Kona yet. And so once we qualified for Kona, I was like, do we still race Chattanooga or whatever? And we're like, well, why don't we just go ahead and do it? It's 2 weeks. It's not a back-to-back weekend. Went to Chattanooga, and it was, probably the best race I've ever had. It was super encouraging. Had a good swim, a really, a strong bike, and kind of hung on for dear life in the marathon. And I was lucky enough to take third overall in Chattanooga and PR'd in a big way. So I was super pumped about that. And it was kind of cool because it qualified us for Kona for next year. So anyway, all that to say, I had raced the full 2 weeks before Kona. And so when I got there, I wasn't sore or anything like that, but just in training rides leading up to the race, I didn't feel like I was kind of firing on all cylinders, if you will. I didn't feel like my legs had a lot of pop in them. I could just tell I was somewhat tired. But regardless, I was just so excited to race. And so the swim in Kona is, you swim out like 100 yards and we're all treading water there. There's a few hundred of us all treading water. There's kind of paddle boarders going back and forth in front of you, holding the line. And then the gun blows and everyone just starts swimming. And so it's like a washing machine. So you get shoved down into the water, you get kicked in the face until it evens out a little bit. But the start it's pretty brutal.
That's intense.
And so, yeah, it was pretty intense. And then, so I had a decent swim. It wasn't a great swim. It was okay. Like I said, I'm not a great swimmer, and that's one thing about Kona is everyone is so fast. It's incredible. You have some of the fastest amateur triathletes in the world from around around the globe. There's like over 100 countries represented there and stuff. Anyway, had an okay swim. Got on the bike. Had a decent bike. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. It was okay. And then when I got off the bike to start the marathon, about 3 miles in, I blew up pretty quick. It was really hot, and it just kind of all caught up with me. I ended up having a pretty brutal marathon, but all in all, it was a great experience, and like I said, definitely a dream fulfilled. So excited to go back for sure.
Yeah, and I think the point that you first came to, which was it was a celebration of in a sense of a lot of work that you've done to get to that point and put yourself in that situation. And so, and having excelled at Chattanooga, 2 weeks prior probably felt so good. So then you could really go and just really take pressure off though, from performing. Obviously you're a competitor and you want to do well. That's a given, but for the actual outcome of the performance, I'm curious, when you say blow up around mile 3 of the run, what does that actually mean for you? And what did you do from that point on? How did you continue to power through it?
Yeah. So blew up for me means I just overheated really quick. So when I got off the bike, I think it was 89 degrees and 90% humidity, and the sun UV index over there is 14, so it was crazy hot. And so it quickly became from a run to a walk run, walk the aid stations, get as much fluid in you as you can, dump ice all over you, just try to cool down. So it went from, running the marathon to running as much as you can and just kind of putting one foot in front of the other. So just by as a comparison point, so Chattanooga 2 weeks before, my total time was a 9:15, and then in Kona 2 weeks later it was a 10:47. So it was about an hour and a half difference, just because of just how the difference in day that I was having. So there's in a full distance Ironman like that, there's a lot that can go wrong, and you got to have a lot. You got to be able to hang in there and just deal with so much stuff thrown at you. And it's really about, it's not so much about who's the most talented that's starting the line. It's really about who can just, get down into the suffering and embrace the suck the most. That's really what it comes down to. So yeah, Kona was definitely one of those days where I was just completely in the suffering for a long time. And so it lived up to its hype as being one of the most challenging races for sure.
Troy, how do you actually do that? So you say embrace the suck, right? And, continue moving through the pain and the discomfort through suffering, right? But like, what are you like? What are you telling yourself? Are you telling yourself something? Are you like trying to break it down instead of focusing on you've gone 3 miles and you still have another 23 to go for the marathon? But are you breaking
Yeah.
it down? Like, get to, 3.5, get to 4, get to 4.25. Like, what are you actually doing that is allowing you to continue
Yeah.
moving forward when it actually is, so painful and there is so much suffering going on?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, you have to, when something feels almost overwhelming, you have to be able to break it down into bite-sized chunks. You cannot look at it as, oh my goodness, I'm struggling right now. I have 23 more miles to go. You have to say, okay, I'm at mile 3 right now. I know I can get to that aid station before I walk. So let me get to that aid station and pour some cold water on my head and, catch my breath a little bit, and then let's do it again. And you just keep stacking those bricks one by one, and eventually you'll look up and you'll see how far you've come. But you can't look at it as, okay, Brian Kane, who is our mental peak conditioning coach at SMU, he used to always say, you're not running 26 miles, you're running 1 mile 26 times. And I just always thought that if you're able to break it down like that and kind of reorient your mindset of like, let me just get this small win and stack those small wins, then pretty soon you're going to be able to make so much more progress than if you were to look at it on the, like, in totality. So that's kind of how you break it down.
Yeah. And that's, for everybody listening to this and watching it, that same concept can be applied to whatever you're working on, right? If it's a project for work, right? Or if it's, the release of something that you were writing, maybe it's a blog, maybe it's a book, maybe it's, you're training for your own race or marathon, as opposed to focusing on the entire training plan, right? Whether you're doing 16-week block, 18-week block, something like that, it can seem overwhelming if you look at the whole big picture of it all. But when you break it down week by week and then chunk it down day by day and then mile by mile for that specific workout for that day, right? It can be, it's a lot more digestible that way. And
Totally.
yeah, it's something to be able to focus on as opposed to the entire thing, which can be overwhelming. And honestly, like, it stems right into, for those of you who follow Troy on Instagram, or for those of you who will be following it, at the very least, go check out his Instagram page, because Troy, you posted your reflections from the race. And I know that we briefly touched on this, as we were prepping for the podcast here, but I just think that, when you go through experiences like this, 8+ years of specific training, obviously, the way that I see it, you've been training for even longer than that. Like, this has been a lifelong training process, mentally, physically, spiritually, right? But for actual, like, discipline, is it 8 years? Correct me if I'm wrong. I think we said 8 years. Like, what is, I don't want to be speaking
I
falsely.
think it's 6, at least 6, something around there. Yeah, 6.
Okay, well, yeah, all right. So you've been training, and but the point is that when you accomplish something like this, like, it's such a pivotal opportunity to sit back and reflect on what you've actually learned through the process and what you've been able to take away and what the bigger meanings are to the accomplishments, to the work, to the process, to the love and the passion that you have for it too. And so, one of the 10 things that you mentioned in there, and just to recap that, everybody, Troy did his reflections on an Instagram page of his post on Kona. So if you have a moment, go check them out. They're awesome to look at and learn from. And I enjoyed reading through them. But that was one of the things that you talked about, right? Was when you're struggling, commit to going another 10 minutes and then doing it again.
Totally.
And then doing it again.
Yep. Absolutely. And I think you kind of hit on it, which was most important. And that applies to anything that you're doing. It doesn't have to be an Ironman. It doesn't have to even be an endurance sport. It's, the project you're working on at work where you're just like, I feel like I'm, butting my head against the wall and I can't keep going. Well, you can go 10 more minutes, commit to just 10 minutes of undivided focus, and then, take a break and look up, and you just keep stacking those bricks, and pretty soon you'll look up and see how far you've come. But yeah, I've always found it, being able to break it down into digestible bits it goes a long way and serves you well.
Is there anything else from those reflections that you want to touch on? I know you got a couple in there. One is like very applicable. What comes to mind for you? Anything you want to touch on?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. Like you said, when you spend a lot of time pursuing, for me, that my goal was to qualify for Kona. And once I had finished the race and I kind of took a few days to just kind of reflect on the journey that got me there, one of the things that just continued to surface was just the support of all the people that helped get you there. And so for me, it was really cool to look around and, see my parents there at the finish line. Obviously see Caroline and Cooper there. I mean, I could get choked up running down that red carpet and seeing Caroline holding Cooper over the fence for me to give a kiss before I finished before I reached the finish line. I mentioned it in my kind of my reflections that, Caroline is the most supportive and encouraging wife that I could ever ask for. And I just I kept reflecting on how this would never be possible without her. All the sacrifices she makes to allow me to pursue this sport, the humility that she shows to, be gracious enough to let me have long bike rides on Saturday mornings. And obviously now with, we have a 4-month-old son, and she just literally never complains about anything. I mean, she's just over the top supportive. Same with my parents; they're over the top supportive. I was looking through pictures on the flight home, and my parents are standing in the super hot sun, waiting for me to run by just so that they can give me a high five. They've been standing out there for 45 minutes, and all they want to do is just give me a high five as I just work my way through this marathon. Same with my brother. My brother was there. Caroline's family was there. Some of our good friends, our best friends, Tanner and Sid Smith, had flown all the way over there to be there. Cody and Spencer and Brandon were there. You were following along. So just, I think once I reflected on all that, it was humbling to think about all the people that had been a part of the journey to get you there, and how that moment was as much about them as it was about you, and how that applies to you in just about anything that you want to do in life. You got to have good people around you and a good team around you, and I'm certainly grateful for mine. That's for sure.
Of course, that was the one that stuck out to me the most, right? Because it seemingly, when you look back, right, you're 65 years old, reflecting on this time, doing it with the people that you love the most and with the people that love you the most. That is going to be, I think, and I think you would agree that that's the most important part to it all, is having done it
for sure
together and shared those moments and experiences with each other, because they just create that much more meaning to them, and that much
100%.
more. Yeah. I love that. It reminds me of another conversation I had with my friend Mario on the podcast, where he talks about, different endurance events that he did. And he mentioned that his favorite one that he did was his 100-mile race, because it was the one that he was able to share the most with his wife, with his brother, with the people that were there, because they were able to be that much more interactive with him during the entire experience. And so it's right in line with what you're mentioning. And so, and it's similar to like anything where you're working on with a team, or where you're working on, with a family project or whatever it might be. It's always, at the end of the day, it can be that much more rewarding and impactful when you do it with people that you love, but you do need that support too. Right. And I did have a question that came up that I was curious about. You mentioned that how much Caroline has sacrificed for you to follow this. Like, training for Ironman is very time consuming, right? Like, you have your husband, you're an employee, you're a father, right? You're a brother, a son, a friend, a community member, and, you have a lot of obligations outside of Ironman. How do you and Caroline, if you do at all, and this question is totally off the cusp here, Do you
Yeah.
all, how do you communicate about these things? Is this something that you sit down and say, hey, like, we got this season coming up, so, I'm going to dedicate this much time on the weekends and then week mornings and then in the afternoon here, and then I'll take care of, Coop at this time and you can go do your thing at this
Yeah.
time? Like, how does that work between you and Caroline? I think a lot of people could benefit from learning how to effectively communicate, so then you can both support each other and pursue each other while also being there for each other and your family.
Totally. Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first thing that I would say is you guys have to be aligned on a goal. If there's this, if you have a huge goal that's going to require a lot of time and commitment, you need joint alignment from both people. Pursuing Kona was something that Caroline and I made a decision together on. It wasn't like, hey, I want to go do this, and it's like, first of all, you can say, hey, I want to do this goal, but am I going to prioritize this to the point where I'm not serving you the way I'm called to as a husband? And if that's the case, then I need to take that goal out of the picture. So to answer your question, it requires buy-in from both people, and it can never come in above, like for me, I'm thinking about how to say this the right way, but I never wanted it to sacrifice quality time with Caroline or with Cooper. And so but at the same time, I mean, it does require a lot of time and training on the weekends. And so as an example, there was, one weekend where I had a 5-hour ride and then an hour run off the bike. And so I made sure to like communicate that 2 weeks in advance of, hey, Caroline, I have a big training weekend. Can we kind of reserve the morning of this Saturday for me to get a long ride in? That would just be really helpful. And if we're aligned on that, then let's commit to doing that, which of course she was gracious enough to let me do. And then once I had done it, then Sunday was kind of her day to go do her own workout. And I got to keep Coop, and you kind of just take turns. But communication is key. Having buy-in from both people is crucial. And then making sure that it doesn't, take the priority of what is most important is also important as well.
What would you do if, say, you had your training plan for that morning, but then something came up with family, right? I'm sure that came up multiple times. I'm sure that's come up plenty of times in your training career. Like, do you then shift around your schedule accordingly? And like, how do you actually manage that? And how do you decide what you're going to do if there was this confliction of time?
Yeah, that's funny. You have to be able to sacrifice the workout for your family. Yeah. I mean, it's a no-brainer. This was actually one of my reflections of a workout can always be made up, but quality time with the family can't. It's not always that way. And so you have to be able to keep a hobby in its rightful place and a goal in its rightful place, and not sacrifice what's most important. And for me, honoring and serving and protecting and pursuing my bride is one of the things that is most important to me. I want to make sure I'm doing that every day on a daily basis. That's far more important to me than getting in a 5-hour training ride. Raising Coop to be a man of integrity, and loving his family and honoring his parents, that's way more important to me than running a sub 240 marathon. Those things it's not even comparable. And so to answer your question, you have to be able to be flexible when it comes to working out. You can plan for it, which is what we try to do. We try to block out certain mornings where that's kind of our time to work out, but it doesn't always go that way. And you have to be flexible and be able to adapt to whatever life throws at you, and just remember to keep the main thing the main thing.
Man, Troy, I've told you this so many times, but I know that Shelby and I really admire the relationship that you and Caroline have. And so, it's just right in line with who you are, what you stand for, morals, values, right? And then honestly, like, my takeaway there that I think, the audience can take away here is that you have what is most important to you, and you make decisions based on that, right? You have your faith, you have your family, you have your, and then everything else is underneath that. But at the top, right, are those two things. And so then whatever is underneath that, obviously training, like doing things that are important to you, Ironman training, like it is high up your list, but it will never supersede the family and the faith, therefore making your decision making, a lot easier in that sense of it becomes a no-brainer, like you mentioned. So yeah, go ahead.
No, I appreciate that. I'm certainly not perfect in this category. I'm grateful for Caroline, who gives me a lot of grace when I fall short in this area. But those are what you listed. Like, my faith is most important to me, and then it's my family, my marriage, and my relationship with our son. Those things are most important to me. My family and friends, relationship I have with my family and friends, that would come next. And obviously, we love training and we love working out. I have fallen short and elevated that to an area on the priority list too high in the past. And I think just I've learned that, that's something that's always going to let you down, which is just pursuing anything of the world is going to let you down at some point. And so I just never want that to take the place of what's most important. I'm not perfect, but I'm certainly trying to be better in these areas for sure.
Yeah. And I think just having the self-awareness, to have that understanding of yourself as well is so important. And I mean, it's kind of in line with, I always think about and reflect on, always doing my best to do things that involve human connection, right? When the other thing does not. And simple example is something that happened this weekend, right? It was, I had, we were out of town last weekend. And so then it's Friday night. We're at a little get together with some of Shelby's fellow students and fellow colleagues at school. And, I had my weekend planned out. I'm going to get organized on Saturday, do some personal projects that I've been wanting to do, work on some videos and some content stuff, and really just like hadn't even unpacked at that point from the previous weekend. So just like trying to get my life in order. And then, we're out Friday night, and three buddies of mine are telling me that they're going surfing in the morning, and they're going out to Newport, and they're like, you should totally come. And I'm immediately like, not defensive at all, but my immediate thought and reaction is, well, no, I can't do that. I have all these other things that I got to do and get done, which is important.
Yeah.
Right. And it is important that I continue to live up to the things that are important to me, which is, getting things back in order, following through on the things that I want to do and get done. The point being, though, is that I did choose to go surfing because, I'm like so far below their level by any measure. Like they've grown up like surfing. There's one guy who like just got into surfing recently, but he's like taking it head on. He's crushing it. But the other two have like born surfing, shredding mountains, like skiing, snowboarding, everything, like just very, very good. And, I can count on one hand the number of times that I've been on a surfboard. And attempt number 2, I was in urgent care with my eye almost gone. So, so
that's awesome.
Yeah. But it was one of those things where like I was resisting saying yes so much because I wanted to do my own thing, but 2, I was kind of just nervous about it. And there was some discomfort there, like surfing with people that are better than me. And, I was resisting this thing that deep down I knew I should do because of the people aspect. And it was one of those things, Troy, like what you mentioned is the workout can always be made up. And this was one of those where I'm like, I can shift everything over because everything that I want to do can get done on any other day. Was kind of where I was at with it. There was no pressing deadlines with them. I wasn't obligated to have these things done to anybody for like a deliverable of any means. And so it's one of those things where I'm like, this is a one-time opportunity. Who knows when it'll be this nice again to go surf with people, build connection and experience, and go do something that's uncomfortable. And it was the most epic day. I had
I love it.
fun. The minute that I finally decided I was going to go, it was like the weight of the world was lifted off my chest and my shoulders. And I was like, oh my God, we're going. And it was like the most gorgeous day where, like the drive there was so pretty. We get there. It's like the most epic sunset. We went to Otter Rock, like right on the coast of Oregon. And it was funny because I'm like, telling them all the reasons why I can't do something, why I don't have a wetsuit. I don't have booties. I'm going to, and they're like, don't worry about it. We got everything you need. We got headgear. We got wetsuit. We got booties. We got a board. We got food. And it's just like, I couldn't say no at that point. And then, but it was once I decided to do the thing that I was resisting and do it because of the connection with others. And it was amazing. And I'm just like, so grateful that I went, man.
I love it. That's, as you were telling that story, all I was remembering was when you, Jake, and I, climbed Mount Rainier on, a week's notice. Same thing, same type of thing. It was like we could have come up with 1,000 excuses of like why this won't work out. But then you look back and you're like, oh, this was so worth it for the people aspect of exactly what you're describing. Like it's just so much fun. So I love that. That's awesome. I'm glad you did that.
Just doing things that, when you're at the, when you're looking back on your life, that you are so glad that you did, because it was super cool. Like it wasn't, I always like to think of the idea of living an epic life, and, it's just right in line with that, but doing it with great people and building those experiences and those memories. So Rainier, that's something that, I mean, maybe we could touch on that real quick since you brought it up. That's something that we did together was climb Mount Rainier, and we did it on a week's notice. That was something where, for the audience here, it was always a goal to climb Mount Rainier, and living in Washington State. It's this.
Hold on,
ladies and gentlemen, we have a sneak preview here of Cooper and Caroline themselves coming in. Oh my gosh, here's baby Coop, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my
hi, Uncle Colin?
He's probably absolutely petrified of this guy screaming in a microphone, looking at him on the computer. Hey, buddy. So, world, for everybody listening, we have Mr. Cooper Castle on video here.
Right.
For those watching, that is Cooper himself. And Caroline, I kind of see you standing there.
Here, you can take a headphone so you can hear him.
Oh, she can't hear.
The headphone.
Hey, C, what's up?
Hi. Oh, not much.
It's good to see you. You've been like half of the talk here so far on our podcast and our conversation.
Oh no.
Yep.
I don't know why you guys are talking about me. No, it shouldn't be.
Say hi, Coop. Say hi.
Hey, Coop.
Hi,
It is so we still
like,
got
what
him.
am I looking at?
On our fridge.
Yeah.
He's up there. We look at him every day. We're gonna have to get a new one now, because he looks nothing like what we have on our fridge at this point.
No, he's a big boy now, that's for sure.
Yeah. Look at him. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
They just wanted to say hi. I told
That's
them
amazing.
You guys come in when you're ready. So.
Bye-bye.
All right. Love you, Willow. See you soon.
We love you. Bye, C. Bye, Coop. Man, I can't wait to meet that guy.
Oh, dude, I can't wait.
Oh my gosh.
It'll be soon enough for sure.
Yeah.
Now you can see our cat.
Yeah, I saw the cat pop in and hop up there.
It's the whole family meeting. They're seeing what Daddy was up to. So
that's amazing. I mean, I think it's just right in line with everything we've talked about today. Is just to see the family in full force. Like, it's really cool, man. It's really cool.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. And I think it's a testament to the people that we have in our lives, the people that we've been raised by, right? The friends that we have. Yeah. Well, Troy, we can go ahead and start wrapping this thing up here. I have those 4 questions that I ask everybody at the end of every interview. You ready to rock and roll on them or what?
Yeah. Remind me of them again.
Of course I'll remind you. I'm not expecting you to just rapid fire.
I don't have them memorized. Yeah.
All good. Here we go. Question 1 is, what is your favorite book, podcast, and or YouTube channel to follow, read, or listen?
Oh, okay. Favorite book. I'll give you 2 from recent memory.
Okay.
That have been recently completed. Number 1 would be Endure by Alex Hutchinson. The curious. I think it's the curiously elastic limits of the human performance or something like that. That book is fantastic. I could barely put that book down. That was really just one that I was just so interested in. So I would say that would be one of them. 2, another one that I finished recently was called The Boys in the Boat. I can't remember the author's name. I want to say it was like Dan Brown, maybe something like that. But it's about the
rowing team.
Is going to hurt you. The rowing team from University of Washington.
It's an amazing story. It's an amazing story.
It's an amazing book. It was one of those books where I was like, when I was reading it, like the end, I was like yelling out loud. I was just so into it. It's a fantastic read. So those would be the 2 that are recent favorites, I would say. And then the next one was podcast.
Yeah, and if you listen to any podcast, the question basically, it started out as I would ask people, what's your favorite book? And then I just started thinking about how I learn. And I was like, man, it's just not limited at all to books for me. It's books, it's podcasts, it's YouTube, it's, different, it's people, and courses. So that's where the question comes from. So I don't know if you got a podcast.
Totally. Well, I mean, number 1, I would have to say Seeds to Success podcast. Also the Walk On Mentality.
Oh yeah.
2 of my best friends doing fantastic things in the podcast world. Cannot recommend them enough. Other than that, I listen to Rich Roll a lot.
Yep.
I listen to honestly, when I'm working, I listen to the Wall Street Journal podcast a lot. That's a good way for me to just kind of keep up with the news and just passively, learn new things. And then from like a fitness perspective, one of the best resources out there, I would say, is Purple Patch Fitness podcast. It's run by a guy named Matt Dixon. He leads the Purple Patch coaching and kind of focused on triathlon. So I think that's a fantastic resource. I love listening to
Can
him
you
as well.
repeat that? Did you Purple Patch? Verbal Patch?
Purple Patch podcast. I believe it's Purple Patch Fitness podcast, but Purple Patch. And Matt Dixon is a guy that hosts it, and he's kind of the now I believe he's the lead Ironman U coach. And he just puts out really, really good content, and is a really accomplished triathlete himself. And so always good to listen to stuff he puts out.
Man, it's got me pretty fired up. I'm sitting here just thinking about hopping on this bike that's right behind me as soon as we step off the podcast here. Cool. Purple Patch. I haven't heard of that. And so that's awesome. I love learning about new ones. Rich Roll, phenomenal. Yeah. It's probably been, 10 years been listening to Rich. I just listened to his podcast on his 10 years of doing a podcast and some of his reflections, and very, similar characteristics, Troy. It's his number 1 thing that he recommended: consistency. Has never missed a Monday in those 10 years.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then just like with anything, the more consistently that you do something, you inherently are going to grow from just continuing to get better at not only producing it, but how to effectively get it out, how to manage your time better, how to then actually get more
Yep.
creative with it. Like you think about it differently. You're putting content out every week. So yeah, right in line with
Yep.
what you touched on earlier.
If I could boil it down to one
Yeah.
thing that I believe is most important characteristic in anything you do, I would say it's consistency. Consistency with your scripture reading, consistency with serving your bride every day, consistency with your workouts, stacking those bricks one by one, just consistency with how you approach work. Are you approaching a project that's a small client fee the same you would that's $1 million client fee? Just consistent in your approach to every single thing. I think that is I've always said that consistency is key. So I definitely echo that for sure.
Number one thing, consistency. I know that you mentioned that your consistency, discipline, hard work will beat out talent every time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
For sure. Second question here, Troy. Favorite quote?
Favorite quote? Ooh. So, can I give you a Bible verse that
absolutely. You can give me anything that you live by.
Okay. This is actually kind of cool because Ironman Chattanooga was my birthday weekend, and for my birthday, Caroline gave me this white wristband. You can kind of see it. And it has Hebrews 12:11 on it, and Hebrews 12:11 is like long been one of my favorite verses. It's for in the moment all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but it later yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. And I just think that that's something that applies to so many different areas of your life. And so during that race in Ironman Chattanooga, I just kept looking at Hebrews 12:11 on my wrist and thinking about Caroline and thinking about Cooper. And so that I would say that's probably one of them. There's another one by, I was listening to a Navy SEAL kind of share his testimony at some point, and obviously everyone knows what it entails to become a Navy SEAL. And he was talking about when he received, basically he had graduated from, like he had gotten through BUD/S and graduated from Navy SEAL training school. And he remembered kind of that feeling of, he envisioned himself having this like, life-altering experience when he was able to call himself a Navy SEAL. And he quoted somebody, I don't know who the original quote is from, but he says, one of the loneliest days a man will ever experience is when he has achieved that which he thought would deliver the ultimate, and in the end it has only left him longing for more. I've always remembered that quote, just as a reminder to never put your hope into anything of the world. And that just helps me keep my perspective and my eyes fixed on what's most important. And that just was a quote that's always stuck with me and been powerful to me, and just something that I committed to memory.
Amazing. So thinking, beyond what you will get, what you will achieve, most important things in life. And also a takeaway for me when you say that is really enjoying what you're doing too, like enjoying the process that will take you to that, your ultimate goal of where you're trying to get to, but just enjoying the actual, I know it's super cliche, but enjoying the journey. And I remember
totally,
years ago, somebody telling me, hey, like those things that they say are cliche, listen to those things and really listen to them, because they are usually very right. And those cliches that we can say, oh, that's super cliche, or, but those things are so true so often. And I think we can just dismiss them, at times. I know that I can for sure. And so just taking a step back to actually think about it and just really enjoy the journey and, analyze, what do you actually enjoy?
Totally.
Next question, Mr. Troy Castle, bucket list item. What's something that's on your bucket list, the Castle's bucket list, C's bucket list? Anything?
Yeah, that's a good question. Man, I would have to say, so for a while it was Kona.
Figured.
Which was cool, because I think truthfully, I think it was a bucket list for both of us, just because, Caroline has been there every step of this journey with me. And so, that was as much, like I said, as much about her as it was about me. So I'd say that was kind of both one of our bucket list items. For me personally, ever since I've been a little kid, I've had just a childlike obsession with Mount Everest. My dad climbed it in 1983. And so ever since then, I've just been absolutely hooked on Mount Everest. And obviously we were talking before Coop and Caroline came in here, we were talking about our Mount Rainier expedition and how much fun we had with that, and just what an experience that is. And we never really got into it, but we climbed with one of the most world-renowned climbers in Garrett Madison. And just to see, somebody at the top of their field be so humble. I mean, he's summited Everest now, I want to say like 12 or 13 times, or maybe, if it's not that high, it's at least 8 or 9 or 10. It's way
double
up there.
digits.
It's okay. Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, and we were talking about Mount Rainier with him when we were on Mount Rainier with him, just talking about Everest and just how he finds that to be such a special place and all that. So I would say personally, going to Everest someday, whether I'll ever climb it or not, I don't know. But I would say that's a bucket list item for me. That's very far-fetched, but just that hopefully answers the question.
I mean, the day that you go and look at Mount Everest, I mean, either two things are going to happen. A, you're there to climb it, right? And you're not just showing up to Everest to look at the thing. Or two, you do show up to look at it, and then you decide, okay, yeah, I'm climbing it. So I would say that there's about two options for if and when that day does come. You show up to look at Mount Everest. I mean, your dad's climbed it. That is so cool. And you've done some other, big time mountaineering. You've climbed Mont Blanc, right?
Mont Blanc and Mont Blanc and the Matterhorn. That was a cool. Matterhorn. I think the best trip though was Mount Rainier with you and Jake and Garrett. That was awesome, and we did it in basically 24 hours almost. Which is crazy.
And you drove us home and back that next day.
Yeah,
because I couldn't drive.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude, that was. I think we were all pretty beat up after that. I remember there was. I could barely walk. Remember how blistered my heels were?
Couldn't put on shoes for 3 weeks after that. And it was the most amazing. I always say this when we're talking about endurance sports, like there's nothing that feels so good than hurting afterwards. Like it is just the constant reminder that you did something so freaking cool, and that you did something that tested you and that you overcame. And it's 100%. Just like, I yearn for that feeling all the time, and I love it when I'm sore. But that one was just like, man, we had those blisters. We were putting duct tape on our heels in the first 5 minutes of walking up from the parking lot.
We could still see the car parked in the parking lot. It's gonna be a long
and we're on the ground, shoes off, putting duct tape on our heels.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. But dude, you're spot on. That was one thing that just to reiterate one thing you said is like that's always the goal with these endurance sports, is just empty the tank. You never wanted to finish a race with anything left in it. Like you said, you want to feel miserable after the race. You want to feel like, I gave that race every single thing that I had. There was nothing left in me. So for sure.
That right there is going to be, when we post this to YouTube, that's going to be the thumbnail. Empty the tank, Troy Castle.
Empty the tank.
That's going to be the title of this right
Empty
here.
The tank.
But it's so true. It's with anything and everything that you're doing that you're committed to, right? Being all in on it and really giving it what you can when you're in that process of of competing, or you're in that process of the doing. Of serving your bride, your significant other, your family, of your team, whatever it may be. So empty the tank. Love it. And then
that's right.
Last question for you here is, it's something that one of my mentors asked me a while back when I was considering careers, jobs, like decisions with like bigger decisions in life. And the question that he asked me, Troy, was, what would 65-year-old Troy say to you? Right. So another way to phrase this is, thinking into the future, 65-year-old Troy is standing talking to you. What would he say to your current self? Like, it could be in regards to anything, but what would 65-year-old Troy say to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would be curious to look at my response to this question when I'm 65. So
that's amazing. Nobody has said that yet.
Make a note of, like, what do I think I would tell myself as I sit here today at 30? What would I tell myself 35 years from now at this point? It would probably be, given just kind of the season of life that we find ourselves in right now, I would say it would be something along the lines of, don't sacrifice the pursuit of, worldly success or worldly pursuits at the expense of your family. Don't miss, Cooper and Lord willing, his siblings don't miss huge moments in their life, the school play or, sports practices or games. Don't miss it because of pursuing, work or anything like that. I would imagine it would be something along those lines of, kind of what we talked about is always keep your family in the right priority, keep your faith in the right priority, and try to bring as many people to know Jesus as you can. That's ultimately what matters the most.
And I think you just have your faith and your moral compass that guides you. And so I think that's why it's so clear for you to come up with, because it's a very authentic answer, because it's deep down, it's like it's what you believe. So yeah, I think, for our audience listening in, just having whatever your beliefs may be, whatever that moral compass is for you, really identifying what those are, what's most important to you, and then helping to simplify decisions and take actions that are in line with those morals and values. Yeah.
Has anyone ever asked you that question, or have you ever given your answer on the podcast, or can I flip the script on you? And
nobody's ever asked me, so you can flip the script, baby.
Please. What would 65-year-old Colin Walters tell 30-year-old Colin Walters?
Yeah, and thank you for the question. It's right in line with what I was talking about earlier. It's for, 65-year-old Colin looking back, talking to me now, is do the things with people, stay connected with humans, because at the end of the day, what is life without any human connection is essentially where my mind goes to it. It's just the things that can be done tomorrow, right? That are your personal tasks. Like, be okay with sacrificing those now, knowing that you can do them tomorrow, when you have these once in a lifetime opportunities staring you in the face with people and humans to go create experiences with and do things with. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, like, human connection, creating life experiences, memories, I think that, those are the things that, looking back, I'll just be so grateful that I did and said yes to, in the face of that resistance and the discomfort in saying yes. Because ultimately, like, again, like one of those quotes you hear, one of the cliches is, everything that you want is on the other side of fear. And it's so often that we relearn that over and over when we actually do take that step and do the thing that we do resist and do the thing that we do fear. And then we come out, great, a better version of ourselves, of course, but also just more fulfilled in whatever the fruits were from that decision. So that's, I think, what 65-year-old Colin would talk about.
I love it, man.
To this
That's
guy.
awesome.
Yeah, freshly 30. So a new question that's been roaming in my head is, where do I want to be at 40? Like, I've really embraced this 30th birthday with so much gratitude and so much excitement, man. I just am like, these first 30 years of my life have been, or like is it 30, 29? No, 30. First 30 years
30,
of
30. Yeah.
life have been amazing.
Yeah.
But I just am like, so I'm very excited with where our life is at and the people that are in it and the opportunities that are ahead of us. And I'm just so excited for this next decade. And so,
Yeah.
like that's where my head is also at is, where does 40-year-old Colin want to be, and what does 40-year-old Colin want to look back and be super proud of having done and fulfilled of having, lived in this next decade of life. So yeah, I'm excited, man.
I love it. Yeah.
Good
One of my closest friends, him, Garrett Kirstich, him and his wife have the saying of they apply it to everything, that the best is yet to come. And I love that because it's so true. Like the best days are always in front of you. And I think when we can have that mindset and that perspective, it keeps us eager and excited for what's to come. So, may we all have that same mindset.
Yeah, man. And for anybody, that may not be feeling that way at this point in time, just want to, encourage you and, just really let you know that there are great days ahead. You may be not there right now, but they will be here at some point. I can't tell you when, and I can't tell you how, but just, trusting and having faith that it will turn out that way. Like, we've all, we're standing here having gone through a lot of downs in our life. Like we've been, at least speaking from my experience, like I know that I've been in some dark places at times, been in some deep places, and, we're here standing with having, a really enjoyable conversation about how good life is now, and I have a lot to be grateful for from those experiences in the past. And so, for those of you that might be going through something right now, I just want to encourage you and just let you know that, there's people and that love and support you in this world. And definitely was not planning on taking the conversation this route, but that's just the reality of, what life is, at least in my experience and our experience, what it has been up to this point. So, man, thank you for saying that.
I love that. That's a great perspective. And I think a lot of people need to hear that. So I'm glad you shared it.
Yeah. Well, Troy, man, it's great to have you on here. It's such a pleasure to always be able to speak with you, and even more so when we can see you. So it's great to see you, and just very, very thankful that you dedicated some time and carved out some time and made some time for this. So thank you for coming
absolutely
on. Yeah.
Oh, dude, I was humbled to be invited on, and as I said from the jump, you're just somebody I've always looked up to and love dearly. So anytime we get to catch up, it's a privilege. So I appreciate it, brother.
You bet, man. And I don't know if there's any last word that you have for the audience, or if there's any last sort of thought you want to share. You can get it out, or we can wrap it up, call it a day. I'm sure there's a lot to take away from this conversation, but floor is yours if you want it for splits.
I feel like a lot of pressure to leave with like impactful parting words,
No pressure at all. Yeah.
I would just say consistency is key in everything that you do. Just always be consistent.
Love it. Empty the tank, baby. Let's go.
Empty the tank and be consistent. Empty the tank and be consistent. That's right.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Troy, thank you for coming on. It's awesome to have you. Love seeing you. Love seeing baby Coop and Caroline make the grand entrance there. So, from everybody listening, everybody watching, thank you very much. And Troy, we'll talk to you soon, my friend.
All right, man. I appreciate you having me.